Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back out to Giga Texas. It's Wednesday, the 2nd of October 2024, and just a few minutes ago we did get the report from Tesla about the third quarter. It came in as a pretty decent quarter, not as strong as some people would have liked, but nevertheless in a pretty tough global market, I think they did pretty well. Now, what the numbers are showing is that they delivered about 463,000 vehicles. They also had a production of 470,000 vehicles, which is about the same as the Wall Street analysts, maybe a little bit lower than what a lot of the more optimistic Tesla fans were hoping for. But as I mentioned, it has been a pretty tough quarter for every automaker, and Tesla actually did quite well. Now, in addition to vehicles, they also produced almost 7 gigawatt hours of energy storage, which is 73% year-over-year increase over what they had last year. So overall, really looking pretty well, considering all things that are going on within the macro environment. Now, one of the things that I did want to kind of come back to and talk about today has to do with the deliveries that I showed you on my previous video over at the battery cathode plant. Now, these large crates that arrived and are kind of stored outside the west part of that facility were marked with Celia, which is a company in France, and that company is responsible, or at least what they do is they produce items that are not only for ceramics or clay, but also with EV batteries. And their battery business, they say that it is part of the activation of cathode materials for batteries. So it's pretty neat that we're seeing that, and I have some additional information that you may find interesting. Now, the process that they are using is for calcination and thermal processing of some of the materials. Now, in the past, we've talked about calcination, and I've gone in depth about what that means. But here we're seeing some more equipment that is arriving, and particularly to do this processing. Now, according to their site, the raw materials are essential to the manufacture of batteries such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, and manganese, and they have to go through an activation process. What they use is something called a sagger or sagur, and this is kind of a clay or ceramic tray or container, and part of this equipment is to manufacture and maintain those. Now, what they do is they put the materials into these saggers, and then it is put into another machine that goes through a heat treating process. Now, it could be either sintering, which means that it brings the material up to but not quite at the melting point, and that ensures a good mix and layering of the material. And also they could do calcination, which is a completely different process, and it uses inert gases. But in any case, these Sager trays or containers are necessary to ensure that there's not a chemical reaction that is undertaking when they are doing the heat treating process. Now, interestingly enough, in addition to this equipment and what it does here at the cathode plant, we know that there is a new permit that is out that talks about the work that is going on here at the factory. And as you can see by this permit here, I'll read it for you. It's Cathode Sagger Stacking TBP Utility App. And this was just signed very recently. So this permit is allowing this equipment that we are seeing to be installed and then tested so that it can be operational here in the battery cathode plant. And finally, one thing that I would like to point out that is important about this equipment is that, as we've talked about before, and as Jordan from the Limiting Factor has reported, the battery cathodes are being changed from what was 811, which is 8% nickel, 1% manganese, and 1% cobalt, to the current 955, which is 90% nickel, 5% manganese, and only 5% cobalt. And earlier this year, I reported that the plan is to continue to reduce the cobalt, and the next step is to go to something called a NMC 973. That would be 90% nickel, 70% manganese, and only 3% cobalt. And this equipment that is being installed into the battery cathode plant is instrumental in being able to achieve that and to continue driving down the amount of cobalt used into the batteries. So anyway, this is one of the reasons why I like to track down equipment deliveries and figure out what is going on. It gives us some insight into what is going on into the future, particularly with 4680 battery cell production and how it's going to continue to mature and improve over time. So anyway, I hope that you found this information helpful. And again, congratulations to Tesla for a very strong third quarter. And it's about time. Let's get into the drone. Let's fly around and see what else is going on here on a very busy Wednesday at Giga Texas.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Good morning from a beautiful sunrise here early on Wednesday morning. I'm going to start off on the west side. I want to give you an update on the Boring Company tunnel since it's dark and we'll be able to see into the tunnel. But first, on the left-hand side of the screen is some of those road surface panels that have been redone and brought over here from Bastrop. All of these have passed testing and they are being installed into the tunnel. Along the way to the tunnel is a quick look at the horizontal drilling that is related to the natural gas pipeline that is being installed through this area and underneath the tunnel. But the big news is work that is going on in the tunnel itself, and that is they are moving those road surface panels in and starting to finish that out. If you recall, we looked at this work over the early summer. It looked like they had them all done, but then they had cracking issues with the panels, so they removed all of them, and now they are reinstalling them. In addition to that, on the bottom center of the screen, more of that electrical conduit, the risers, and that connects into the tunnel on the bottom 1/3 and will be covered by these road surface panels. In fact, there are 8 of them here on the ground, getting ready to be picked up and moved inside. And because of the low lighting and the lit interior, I'm going to bring the drone down. This will give you a great look into the tunnel. Not only can you see all of those pipes and utilities on the bottom, but also how none of the road surface panels are visible. So they are having to drive well into the tunnel to install these panels and then drive back out, pick up another, and go inside. So the work is underway, which is great, and I hope that you enjoyed these kind of unique views of the tunnel on this early morning. So I'm going to prepare the drone to come up to a higher altitude, and we'll cross over and resume the flight on the other side of the highway. If you look closely, the red lights on the west main entrance are on. Those turn off, as you can tell here, right at sunrise. So that gives you a great idea of the time that I am flying right now. And it's beautiful with the flags flying in the breeze on the right-hand side of the screen, and also some watering of all of the vegetation in that landscaped section. Now, what I'm showing you here is the exit point for the Model Ys. Many of them are driving out. This used to be the end of line until it was moved across the street to the new end of line facility. So now it's just basically an exit point. Marshal for all of the vehicles here, when they get the drivers, then they will take them over to the west side. Did want to stop here. In addition to the watering of the plants, I want to show you that there's additional concrete work that is being done at the base of each of the flagpoles. And this is a part of that work to finish off the kind of the foundations and also the space that you would be walking on around the flagpoles. So that's good to see that that is continuing. In this area, more of these deliveries, and as I bring the drone down in, a good look into this section of the building. They have been taking these deliveries in the wooden crates, unpacking them inside, and then breaking the crates down on the outside, and that appears to be continuing. As we fly to the south, good view of some of the Cybertrucks exiting the factory and driving down the road. These are going over to that outbound lot and then be processed through the end-of-line facility. And of course, on the left-hand side of the screen is that entry point or exit point for the vehicles right next to that temporary platform. And a good view here on the left-hand side of the screen. In the middle of the screen is this driveway that is paved. It will access to the boring tunnels entrance on this side of the factory, and then they'll be able to drive Model Ys and Cybertrucks through that tunnel over to the other side. As I bring the drone up, take a look at some of the framing that you see, the black framing along the side of the building and some of the beams. This is all in preparation for the glass installation to resume. And I hear that that will be happening the week of the 14th of October. So a couple more weeks until we start seeing glass here. It's also a great look at the materials and some of the progress that is going on inside. In addition to that, some of the temporary fences for some of the equipment on the left-hand side of the screen, and more work here with the cooling system and temporary pumps in the middle of the screen. Looks like there are workers just starting their day, and they're in that ring, and they do some calisthenics and then get their safety briefings, and then they begin their workday. So I'm going to fly to the south along the southwest corner of the factory and give you a great look across the south end with the sun coming up, beautiful skies. And in addition to that, we see the white pipes for the roof drainage system continuing to be assembled and put into these trenches right next to the tunnels. The tunnels themselves, the tops are pretty much covered with dirt, geotextile membranes, waterproof material on the concrete as well, and then that gravel mix on top. I do expect to see some asphalt happening here soon. The middle part of that terrace is going to be for a walkway, and then the bottom part is for that extra space for drainage in case the cyber pond were to overfill. As we continue to fly to the east, it's also a look at the exposed parts of the tunnels that have been stained white. It's the same kind of stain that is on the exterior panels of the main building. So that will make these all kind of blend in to that overall color scheme of the factory. This is a great look at this tunnel with the doors and how it is starting to get the final configuration and what it will look like when it is completed. As I fly into the southeast corner section, I'll try to keep the drone low, come in close to the cooling plant. This will be a great look at all of the work that is on the ground. As I zoom in, these blue items and pipes are part of that clean out system for the pipes for the cooling system itself. It looks like some of the pipes have been painted silver now. And of course, you see those black risers. Some of them are being painted silver as well. There will eventually be 6 of those once that work is completed. As I continue to pan the drone back to the extension, we'll start here on the second floor. Look at more of the ductwork that is being installed on the ceiling and the equipment that's on the ground. On the bottom, we see some of that dirt where they've been doing preparation for a slab, some equipment on the right-hand side of the screen, and of course, these silver and red plate type heat exchangers and this system that is being installed, including those kind of green tank-like items on the left of the screen. Of course, this enclosure on the ground floor is where the Cortex supercomputer data center is located, and on the upper floors and around this area is part of the cooling system for that computer cluster. As I bring the drone up to a higher altitude over the glass south facing, wanted to show you the progress with the roof. This gray material is over most of that data center, and it looks like there is at least one duct for ventilation being installed, in addition to all the cables that are coming across in that middle section, and that'll be powering the data center. As I pull away, this is a great look overall of the south end, the work on the tunnels, and on that southeast corner that we just visited. As I continue to fly over the power lines and to the north, I'm going to bring the drone down and give you a view from the east side of the work that is going on here. As I zoom in, the areas inside the southeast corner that we just visited, and a nice golden hour lighting into that open section right now. On the ground floor here, this is the continued work to clean out the pipes and continue to install more of the systems for the cooling plant that will be supporting that data center. On the ground, you see kind of that black pipe that goes underneath the road over to the lined pond, and that is part of that clean out right now. On the ground, these brown pipes are part of a repair and or expansion of a natural gas pipeline that runs through this area. And again, this is unrelated to the natural gas pipeline on the west-hand side of the highway. Great look at the parking garage. And on that east side ground floor, they continue to have that privacy fence for additional testing that is going on inside. On the ground is the workshops and some of the materials for the glass company. And as I mentioned, that's getting geared up for the resumed installation of glass on the week of the 14th of October. And as I continue to fly over the robotic avenue on the bottom of the screen, you can get a good look at that cleared area on the east. Some of the light poles that are waiting for installation, that privacy fence on the ground that we previously discussed, and on the north end, a good look at how this part of the parking garage appears now. There still is some trench work that is being done on the ground on this northwest corner. In addition to this, the medians underneath the power lines continue to have some reconfiguration work. I'll start on the south end, looking all the way back to the cooling plant, and you can tell that work that is going on in the middle bottom of the screen in those medians. It looks like there may be some sort of road material, or at least a surface material, being put on top of the dirt. In the middle, we see that the area is being compacted down in that clearing, and in preparation for some more reconfiguration work. And they're using that water to keep down the dust and help with the compacting. As we fly over the roof, I'm going to reposition the drone over to the west side, and we'll resume on the other side of the highway now that the sun has come up a little bit more. Now that the third quarter is over, work is now underway to try to get a really solid fourth quarter. So many of the vehicles are getting ready for processing. Production is ramping back up this early morning, and the outbound lot has a lot of the Model Ys and the Cybertrucks all starting to fill up in preparation for getting the transport trucks to move them off-site. And a good number of vehicles here on the superchargers on the south end of the end-of-line facility. This large clearing still is waiting for some additional work. It could be because of the horizontal drilling that you see in the middle of the screen. That is related to that natural gas pipeline that runs north to south through this location. Maybe once all of this is completed, we'll see resumed work on this large dirt section. As I mentioned, more of the vehicles are starting to be stacked back up in the outbound lot. A good look across the lot, a nice view of downtown Austin. And we see many of the Cybertrucks in the middle of the screen, and a mix of Model Ys and Cybertrucks on the left-hand side of the screen. And I would expect to see this very busy now that we have begun the fourth quarter, and hopefully we will see the numbers coming out of Texas, especially the Model Ys, starting to increase over what we have seen in the past. Now, with those delivery numbers that we talked about in the intro, and the fact that we've noted that there's a lot more Cybertrucks than there are Model Ys here, that may indicate that not only is there reconfiguration work going on with the production lines inside the factory, but also there was a concerted effort to concentrate on Cybertrucks in lieu of the Model Ys here. And I'm hoping that for the fourth quarter, that will change. Some people ask, when will there be a non-foundation Cybertruck? I'm thinking that with the way the sales are going right now, it will be towards the end of the quarter, maybe 2025, and that will be when they do that. So I know that Tesla has kind of wrestled with that decision a couple of times. In the summer, they talked about the Foundation series ending, but that seems to have changed, and it's going to be closing out the year as far as what I can tell. So as I pull away from the outbound lot, just a good overall view of the activity that is going on here in the morning of Wednesday, getting the fourth quarter kicked off. On the ground, right in the middle of the screen, is more of that horizontal drilling and installation of the natural gas pipeline. And this is all, of course, happening right next to the material staging yard with those two large tents and some of the materials that are being stored here temporarily. So I'm going to position the drone again to prepare to cross over the highway, and we'll resume on the other side with a lot more details to cover. Notice that work is continuing here with the flexible conduit, most likely for the fiber optic cabling that is being installed along this entire west berm. In this, my previous video, these were up at the corner of the building. Now they have worked their way to the south, and I expect to see this continuing to work its way all the way to the south. Another change is this clearing where the concrete has been removed and it has all the dirt and this black temporary fence. We now see resumed excavation work. There's a bobcat that is moving some dirt over to make what appears to be a ramp going into those doors. And what that is for and how this is going to materialize, I'm not really sure. But it is at least good to see additional work now underway in this area after quite some time of it kind of being on hold. As we pass over the recycling station and those blue bins for the 4680 cell battery cases, what I did notice here is this very black Cybertruck being parked. And that definitely is an interesting look, and actually looks pretty good in my opinion. And then, of course, this area where we're expecting to see at least one, maybe two nitrogen tanks installed onto those pedestals in that new area and then protected by those bollards. And the roof is more of the ductwork, those ducted fans, some mounts, and additional installation of equipment. And it still has some ways to go until it is completed. Again, this is related to the expanded 4680 production system that has been installed most of this year and is now getting to the point where we may see it active very soon, if not already. We do note that there are more of the Cybertruck castings on the ground here next to the building and some delivery of some vehicles on that truck. As I continue to maneuver along the north side of the factory, a couple of things. We do need notice that there are Cybertruck castings all over this location in the middle of the building and on this side of the building. In addition to that, as I zoom in, we see what looks to be bumpers. Those are not actually bumpers. Those are holding plates that are used for painting of the bumpers. And there are a lot of those, and they are used in the paint shop. Here's more views of the Cybertruck castings that are being stored on the ground next to these 4 trailers with the cooling units. And of course, a lot more of the castings in the rack mounts here on the northeast side of the building as well. Now there is a delivery going on. I'll get the drone in closer and we'll take a look at what it is. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it may be aluminum ingots that are part of what is melted down and used for the castings themselves. This is at least one of them being unloaded, and of course the kind of accordion truck and how it appears today. And we'll see where they bring that over and put it on the ground, and then later on it'll be moved inside. We do see the trench work with that square excavation over some of the conduit. Still hasn't seen much change there, but we do see a lot of change on the east side with this steel structure. More of the roof beams have been installed. All of the columns have been installed. There's more steel material on the bottom left of the screen, and we can see what looks to be a kind of a center roof drainage system that is being put in, and that is where they're doing a lot of welding right now. In addition to that, more equipment is being lifted up and installed onto the baghouse filtration plant, including those two kind of box-like structures. Now there are two levels of them. Based on the height of the structure, I would expect to see more of those installed as well. And in addition to that, more of the pipe work that will connect into the building. This is a good view of some of those connecting points through that black grate material. And I'll move the drone around the power lines, bring it back down to give you kind of more of a level view of what this looks like, and zoom in so you can get some of the detail of the work with all the pipes, the connections, some of the filtration units, the tanks on the left, those box-like structures in that tall section. There's actually work going on the roof with the ductwork as well. And then here is a great look with the light into the underside of this covered section. There does look like a wall that is being installed between that structure and the baghouse plant, so we may be looking for a partially enclosed structure. So let's go over to the die shop and battery cathode plant and see what is going on over here today. Looks like there's some work around the concrete vaults on the cleared section where Tesla Road will expand through here at some point. I also wanted to bring the drone through the alleyway today, get an idea of some of the activity. It looks like the north end is open to traffic, which is a little bit of a change. On the left-hand side of the screen is an oxygen tank with some vaporizers. It looks like there's a temporary tent over some of the tanks on the ground and some additional work that is going on here. Now, the large tanks that I show you here are mostly oxygen. They have the vaporizers, and I believe that this is related to the processing of the battery cathode materials, possibly with the calcination process, and maybe even with some of that equipment that we talked about in the video introduction. This is a nice close-in view of all of the heat exchangers, pumps, pipes, and equipment on the roof section next to the Evapco fan units. On the ground is those temporary chilling units and generators, and of course the new loading platform on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm going to also take this opportunity to show you the expanding grouping of the materials here, the Clea materials that are from France. More of the boxes have been delivered. In addition to that, some of the equipment has had the plastic removed from covering them, which indicates that we will see those installed here pretty soon. And I'll show you those here in a moment. We do look like there's a cabinet of type material on the right-hand side of the screen, still in plastic, a concrete vault, many of the wooden crates, more items with the plastic next to this tank. And in addition to that, here's one of those items that has been unwrapped. And I'll try to give you a closer zoomed in view of what it appears to be, if I can. And also another one of these items is also unpacked. More of them are nearby. And this is a kind of a look at what that material and those equipment look like here today. So anyway, a lot of activity, and of course we talked about what much of this is for and the significance of this equipment in the video intro, and I hope that that helps put into context what we are seeing here on the west side. I've come up to the far northeast just to quickly check on the equipment here. No real changes that I can see next to that bridge crane and that cylindrical steel item. So instead, let's fly along the east side of the building over the cell testing lab and the Wade pit. And what we can see as we get closer to the crash test facility is that some of the crash tested vehicles have been moved along the fence on the right-hand side of the screen. Some additional vehicles that have been crash tested are on the bottom right of the screen, and it looks like the rotisserie is still next to the main entrance, or at least the north entrance, and on the south end next to the equipment room is where the conduit work is wrapping up, and it comes all the way through this location over to this temporary kitchen, and it looks like that work is coming to a soon end as well. So I'm going to reposition the drone up to the electrical switch yard, and we'll get an update on the work that is going on up there for the third transformer. The good news here is that the concrete has been all poured and all of the forms have now been removed. This is a great look at that center slab with the catch basin around it. There will eventually be grate material that will be put over those the catch trenches. It looks exactly like what we see in the upper part of the screen with that second transformer, and that dividing wall is being prepared as well. More footings north of that slab, and then here we see the auger at work drilling more holes for footings, and this is again to extend the already installed kind of equipment and steel items towards this direction. And this will allow the bay, this is the third of 3 bays, to be reconfigured to support that new transformer. And as I pull back away, this is an overall view of how the entire electrical switch yard looks, how it is changing. And you can see in that middle section where they are putting the footings, how that will kind of round out the rest of the electrical switch yard. So that will bring to a close this look at Giga Texas on Wednesday, the 2nd of October. I hope you enjoyed what we were able to talk about in the intro and throughout the video, and hopefully it really helped put into context what we are seeing. As always, thank you very much for your support. I very much appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of the